All right. Here we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Andy Boyan with Chainlink Labs. We are here with Reflexer Labs. Stefan Ionescu, it is great to be here with you. All right. We're just going to give everybody a moment to get online. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulties to be on the hour, but now we're back with Stefan. Okay. So again, everyone, my name is Andy Boyan from Chainlink Labs. Really happy to be here talking to Reflexer Labs, Stefan Ionescu, about their protocol, stablecoin protocol that is not pegged. A stablecoin protocol that's not pegged. It's fantastic. We're going to learn a little bit about this protocol, some of their upcoming roadmap items, what Stefan does and his background, and how Chainlink's involved and helps secure parts of that and the collateralization of that. So I'm really excited to have you here today. How you doing, Stefan?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we've been chatting for a little bit, and so I know a little bit about Reflexer Labs. But why don't you give our audience and your community, thank you everyone who's joining, just a little bit of background on how you got into crypto and why you got into this DeFi space.
Sure. So I joined crypto in late 2017 during the big bull run. Back then, I didn't really know a ton about crypto. I wasn't really a crypto developer. I switched from a Java background to Solidity. I switched because I wasn't really happy with how my country was being run. So I come from Romania. The government is pretty much fully corrupt. You can't really change a ton in that country. So when I heard about the idea of a DAO, kind of a group that can just come together and coordinate through code on the blockchain, I was really fascinated by this, and I just wanted to kind of build my own DAO. But then I saw the other use cases that you can build on top of Ethereum, and kind of I saw that you can build loans, derivatives, all kinds of options, and so on. So that's mainly why I decided to stick around.
Fantastic. And so, how does Reflexer fit into that? Those loans, derivatives, these DeFi protocols. What is it that Reflexer does?
Sure. So Reflexer is a project meant to build non-pegged stable assets. It's actually trying to build the original vision for DAI from Maker, because the original vision for DAI was kind of very different, or at least partially different from what it is today. Initially, Maker wanted to build a non-pegged stable asset, so something that is still stable, but it's not pegged to any currency. It's not to the dollar, not to the euro, not to nothing. And it's meant to kind of be stable in the sense that it's dampened compared to its own collateral. So if you put, for example, ETH and you back your DAI with ETH, DAI would float around, similar to how, for example, euro floats around compared to the dollar. But it does this kind of in a dampened way. And that's kind of how stability was meant to be defined back then.
Okay, so in DAI's case, people deposit ETH as collateral and then they withdraw DAI. So essentially, they want to maintain exposure to their Ethereum, but then they can get out this fungible asset that they can use to buy other things, or or hold or use for whatever. And it's pegged to that dollar. So they decided, okay, we're going to leave it there so people understand it, right? It's a kind of a narrative. Now, no, not right. Yeah, Rye, your the Reflexer coin is not pegged. How is a coin stable but not pegged? Like, what is that? How does that work?
So the main difference between RAI and something like single collateral DAI is that kind of RAI and Psi are both, or Psi was backed by only by ETH. RAI is backed only by ETH. But instead of having like a peg, basically a number inside the protocol that's set to one, this peg is now moving. So instead of kind of sending it forever to number one or to whatever other number, that number always changes. So it can go up or down. And that number is changed by our own PI, by our own on-chain PI controller. So we built a PI controller that basically looks at the current peg that's in the system. It looks at the market price of RAI that's on exchanges, and then it says, okay, I need to move this peg up or down in order to compel the market to also bring RAI's market price closer to this peg. And kind of a bit of background, PI control or PID control is widely used in the real world, in industrial systems, even in your thermostat and stuff like that.
So that's so this controller, it's like it's an automated system, like a
Yep.
thermostat. If you set to a temperature at your house and it gets too warm, the AC comes on and cools your house down, or if it gets too cold, the heater pops on and warms your house up. So it's a self-regulating system,
Yep.
and that's built inside these smart contracts. How does well, I got a bunch of questions. I love this idea. What price? So right now, rye is set at about $3. Like, how does this Pi controller determine that price? Why is that the price? If it's not a pegged to anything, why that one?
Right. So initially we set the kind of moving peg for rye at 3.14, so at pi, because we had a Twitter poll and people picked pi, and we were like, okay. And from that point on, the rules are pretty simple. So if kind of the on-chain controller looks at rye's market price, if rye's market price is above the moving peg right now, the controller will make the moving peg go down. If the market price is below the moving peg will start to go up. And the reason is that when the moving peg starts to go down, it's essentially like a negative interest rate charged on all rye holders, because you expect that in the future, the market price of rye will also go down. So basically you lose money. If the moving peg starts to go up, the protocol is essentially revaluating rye. So it's making it more expensive. And people can expect that the market price of rye will also follow that moving peg sometime in the future. So that's how the protocol itself charges, in a way, negative or positive interest rates without actually charging any interest rate. It's just kind of setting a new expectation for the market price of rye in the future.
So you can think about it like a central reserve sort of system, but instead of centralized and controlled by people, it's managed by this smart contract that does it automatically. Is that right?
Yep, pretty much.
That's fantastic. Now, I was reading on some of your documentation that because it's set the way it is, it's not pegged to a specific fiat coin, that enables different kinds of use cases with it. So can you talk about what some of those use cases might be? Like what gives that use case value for it? What do people want to go do with Rye?
Yeah, so Rye is mainly DeFi centric. One example I can give right now is, let's say you mint Rye and then you lend it on, let's say, Compound or Aave or whatever, money market. And let's say what the interest rate that you get for that is 5% per year, for example. And let's also say that the moving peg of Rye goes up at a rate of 10% per year currently. So kind of the net rate that you get by lending Rye is not 5%, it's 15%, because you're lending a currency that's appreciating. On the other hand, if you lend, let's say let's say you lend at 5% on Compound, but Rye's moving peg goes down at a rate of minus 20% per year, for example, you're losing 15% because you're lending a currency that's depreciating. So you can, in a way, do some kind of interest rate arbitrage between the core protocol, where you mint Rye, and other secondary markets like money market, like Compound. The other kind of interesting thing, I only talked about the lender. You can also think about the borrower. So let's say you borrow Rye from Compound at 5% per year. Well, if Rye's moving peg goes down at a rate of, let's say, 15% per year, you're essentially earning 10%, because you're borrowing a currency that's depreciating in value and is depreciating faster than you accrue interest by borrowing from Compound. And kind of the same thing, if you borrow at 5% per year from Compound, but the rate that Rye is revalued at, so the moving peg goes up at a rate of 10% per year, you're paying 15%. So the rate from Compound plus the rate of the currency that's appreciating now.
Cool. One of the other use cases I saw is a leverage. You have a leverage option. How do you do levered Rye? And so you collateralize with ETH, and then there's this leveraged option there. Can you talk about that?
I mean, that's also something you can do in DAIs. You can kind of recursively mint Rye, sell Rye, get more ETH, put more ETH in the protocol, mint Rye, and then sell it again. So this way you can kind of get leverage exposure to ETH. This is kind of something that Maker enabled like years ago. Kind of the spin that we add to this is that now you have this moving peg, and you can kind of look at what the system is doing, and then you do something according to what the system is doing, so you benefit yourself.
Okay, fantastic. So one of the interesting things about this peg, if there's no peg, we were talking about it earlier, is it's really like just highly or low volatility. So it's this low volatility asset that's not necessarily pegged to a fiat coin, a dollar or a euro or whatever it is. But when market changes happen, this happens slower. So how does that help out people who are doing lending and borrowing in money markets and this sort of thing if volatility is much lower on RAI?
Well, the idea, like the core idea of RAI, or the kind of the core mission that Maker set out like years ago to do, was to kind of detach a stable asset from the fiat regime. So just have something stable on the blockchain that's completely detached from what governments are doing or banks are doing in general, and just have it like live there. It just works, and people can trade it, and they don't need to care about what banks are doing in the real world. So kind of the core idea is that you kind of detach yourself from the normal traditional finance world. And now you have kind of this interesting mechanism on chain. You have this moving peg that's revalued or devalued, and then you can kind of take advantage of what the protocol is doing. Again, you can lend, you can mint RAI, you can lend it, you can borrow it, you can do whatever you want with it, and you can kind of look at what the system is doing and then take decisions according to that. And when taking decisions, you can kind of do something with it and also stabilize the system at the same time. So you can kind of sell it, you can buy it, borrow it, and do whatever, and the system will look at the activity on the secondary market and will take new decisions.
Yeah, one of the things your website said was lower volatility will reduce liquidation penalties as well. Like
Right.
if RAI is not going to tank in price and you have that deposited somewhere as collateral, yet the market moves, then you can say, okay, well, I need to move. And you don't have seconds or minutes to work. You have an hour or whatever it happens to be to unwind your positions.
Right. So yeah, in the long run, ideally we get to a point where like RAI right now is pretty tightly coupled with ETH. One, because there's not yet a ton of arbitrage activity on secondary markets, on Uniswap, for example. There's also a ton of education still to do. And there's also kind of a majority of the RAI supply is on Uniswap, meaning that there's not like a ton on the sidelines kind of trading. So that kind of makes RAI tightly coupled with ETH right now. But in the long run, we think that RAI will be less coupled with ETH, and it will give you kind of dampened exposure to ETH. So yeah, as you said, you can kind of use it as collateral on another platform, and you can kind of anticipate what will happen to RAI by looking at ETH, at least in the long run. So kind of short-term kind of shocks will not really matter, but kind of the long-term trajectory of ETH can kind of tell you what will happen to RAI.
Cool. So this is Chainlink Labs Q&A. How does Chainlink fit into collateralization on Reflexer? How do you guys use Chainlink protocol?
Sure. So we actually started to use Chainlink in production back in October because we had a mainnet demo prior to RAI. So for 3 months, we used the Chainlink ETH USD price feed. That's used kind of as a price feed to determine how much RAI someone can mint against 1 ETH. And that kind of helped us kind of quickly ship everything on mainnet, test everything, and then ship RAI in February. So that's kind of the main thing that we're using Chainlink for, and it works great.
Yeah, one of the advantages of Chainlink we like to talk about is that the oracles are ready to go. So you can get a price feed up and running in Oracle in your stack, and you can deliver a product and iterate relatively quickly. And then you don't have to worry about maintaining an Oracle. You don't have to keep a developer on staff 24 hours making sure that your oracles are updated. Chainlink is handling that.
That's right. Yep.
Excellent. Well, glad to be a part of the Reflexer ecosystem and Ethereum ecosystem, of course. So DeFi lending is continually growing. We're hitting all new highs in DeFi total value all the time. But if you take a look at the predicted amount of available cryptocurrency, it's like still barely scratching the surface of DeFi. Like that's just the beginning, let alone off-chain assets and finance dollars and everything, derivatives and everything else. So as a founder in DeFi and crypto, what do you see as the next major tipping point in DeFi to have holders do more with their funds?
I think we're seeing more and more kind of super fluid collateral. So you can kind of use your collateral on multiple platforms at once. Like one example, like you can deposit ETH and RAI on Uniswap, you get an LP token, and then that LP token can be used to mint some other synthetic, and then that synthetic can be staked again with ETH on Uniswap, and then you get another LP token and so on. So I think this trend will probably continue. It's on one hand, it's kind of dangerous because you can have like one liquidation on one of these platforms and then it cascades in all the other platforms, which is really, really dangerous. On the other hand, I don't think it will stop. Like people will just continue to innovate on the financial front, and it will probably just continue.
Well, when people are hungry to do something with their funds, I feel like there's kind of a competing narrative. There has been in crypto for a long time of, you get Bitcoin, you get Ethereum, and you put it on a wallet and you store it, you hodl it, and you don't touch it. And then DeFi comes along and says, okay, well, you've been hodling, but now you can earn on it. And that yield is pretty compelling. Do you see a conflict between those, or do you see like people kind of coming around who are in the hodl camp?
I don't think there's a conflict. Like anyone can do whatever they want with their funds. The idea is that now, as you said, you can actually use them. So you can pick between, yeah, I can store them or actually get some yield on that, which is preferable. Like yields on my bank account, like right now, I think they give me like 0.1% per year. So it's not really that compelling. I would rather just use DeFi.
Yeah, I don't even look at the rates there anymore because I hear the stories of everyone, and what's the point of looking? I know it's under one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a question for hodlers or holders. What do you think about traditional investors? What is it going to take to bring more traditional funds into DeFi?
Well, that's, I think, good UX. Like I really like Dharma, for example. They made kind of a nice interface on top of Compound, and now they're kind of building a bit more. They're trying to onboard more people into crypto. So I think kind of UX is really important. And the other thing is like possibly big platforms such as Coinbase. Like they will soon, like their IPO right now is pretty hot. They're kind of getting really well known and kind of beyond just the crypto sphere. So that's another thing that I think will help.
Just getting the word out more, and as family offices and hedge funds and traditional offices find out, like, okay, this is a real industry, they are actually somehow getting 10% yield or more in some places, we'll have more interest come up, and certainly that's the pattern for this year. So okay, so I've got a roadmap question for you. What's coming up for Reflexer? I know you guys have something in a couple of days, and then after that, but feel free to talk about like what's coming up next. What can we get excited about?
Sure. So we have a couple of things. Like we have a public roadmap for RAI in order to remove governance from the system. We want RAI to be more or less fully autonomous. So kind of the majority of the protocol should not be controlled by humans. We should not change any parameters. We want to have at least one of these systems like RAI that are like this. So you can't really change much. And what you can change is kind of bounded. And the other things are, we didn't yet kind of announce this like officially. We want to help other kind of projects or communities launch their own RAI-like assets that kind of dampen their own whatever collateral types that they want to add, and they create this stable asset that's now kind of floating. One of the first idea that we have is potentially build a BTC-backed RAI, and we're working on this right now under the hood. So I think the next big thing, apart from RAI, will probably be more assets like RAI that are backed by different collateral types. So anything from BTC to probably DeFi tokens and maybe more.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. The governance tokens, which have been pretty volatile, but really exciting in this past year, DeFi governance tokens, to have use them as collateral and then have a more stable asset that you can actually hang on to and do some things with while retaining exposure. And Bitcoin, of course, is, there's such a large market cap there and investment already. That's really interesting. In a couple of days, you have a token launch. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and And is that the governance token?
Yeah, so we don't really call it the governance token because again, we don't really like governance. We kind of want to remove most of it from the protocol. We call it the ungovernance token with the kind of the idea that people should view RAI as a system that should have less and less governance over time. So even if like in 1 year from now, there's still some governance, ideally the community should still kind of try to think of ways to kind of remove even that. To kind of try to get as close as possible to zero, even if it's not really possible, maybe in the next 5-10 years, try to get there. So yeah, we will have the first kind of the Genesis community distribution in about 2 days from now. We're preparing everything right now, and we will have more announcements today and tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic. So we will keep track of Reflexer over the next couple of days. Looks like some pretty big news coming. And then, I can't help but think back to your introduction and how you got involved in all of this crypto industry, as you were just interested in DAOs and how people can come together. And your next move here is to try and decentralize even more ungovernance token and pull away from a protocol. Has your perspective on that changed at all over time, or is it like it has just happened, or has that been your mission? Like, we're going to do something and we're going to just let the robots run it and make it happen?
At this point, I don't think someone can change my mind on kind of ungoverning RAI. So again, I just want at least one of these systems to be like this. Like all the other, like the BTC backed version, whatever we can offer governance for that. We can do whatever. I just want this. I want my baby to just be left alone and just live there and just work. Like just one. That's it. That's what I want.
No, that's fantastic. This progressive decentralization narrative has been going on for a really long time across this industry. And so to see that come to fruition it's really cool. And projects are doing that, some faster, some slower. But it looks like yours is ramping up to it. So we're really looking forward to seeing how that goes. Where can our viewers and viewers in the future follow Reflexer? Where can we find out more or track this upcoming ungovernance token launch?
Sure. So the best place is Twitter. You can find us on Twitter at Reflexer Finance. We also have a link to our Discord there. We usually live on Discord. Most of our community is there, so you can just come say hi, and we can help you with anything. We can help you onboard, and so on.
And then is it reflexer.finance?
Yeah, that's our website. You can also we also have a link to that on our Twitter.
Okay, cool. And we'll have links to that in the show notes as well down below, to make sure that you guys can go check it out. Do you still have a test net as well?
Yeah, we do have one. So we will probably test even the kind of coin, the Genesis distribution. We'll also probably test that on testnet to make sure everything works, and then we will deploy that on mainnet. And
so if you're curious, go ahead.
You can go there. It's appcoven.reflexer.finance.
Coven. And so that'll be in the documentation somewhere and on their website. If you viewers, you want to go and check out Reflexer and see how it works, you can go onto the testnet. You can do things for free. You can get faucet tote ETH, so you can play with that and really kind of see how it works. There's some good demos online. I've seen some other videos that you've done some walkthroughs of your vaults and how those things work. So I want to encourage people to go ahead and check those out. Stefan, thank you very much for coming on and hanging out with me. It's been nice getting to know you over a little while, and absolutely best of luck in the upcoming days and the upcoming years. I hope your baby does very, very well.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
And thank you to all the communities for coming, Reflexer communities, Chainlink Labs, to my associate Mark for helping out as well and getting us going here. Again, my name is Andy Boyan with Chainlink Labs, and this has been Stefan Ionescu from Reflexer Labs, and this has been Chainlink Live.